Good afternoon. This is Gina, and I am so blessed to be here with you today. For the joy is in the journey. What a wonderful opportunity to come together and to be in that place of knowing that joy can only be in this moment, and it is always available. That is what this show is all about. That reminder that we only ever have right now, and that we are here in this new now moment with that truth of divine joy within us. So the question is, are you experiencing it? Are you fully experiencing the joy that you are? Because if it is a divine attribute, which we know that it is, because it is unchangeable, in that knowing, it is already a part of you. So how do you access it? How do we get even more of that experience in our lives? So every week we come together in this place on this beautiful network to discuss just that. Just to tell you about myself, if this is your first time tuning in, I am a practitioner that is blessed to be in service on the morning prayers with this wonderful team here at New Thought Media Network. And I am also blessed to be the spiritual leader of CSL Greater Boston. You know, I am the spiritual director of Greater Boston. And it's a new community that is growing and exciting. And there is so much new that is happening here at New Thought Media Network that there is just so much enthusiasm about. So knowing that there is joy here and it is always present. My guest for today is a friend of mine, a woman I'm blessed to call a friend. She has been in class with me for years, and I am so grateful that she's here with us. You know, it is fascinating in New Thought, the fact that we get just that. It's New Thought. We think in a different way, and we open at the top so that we are in that place of allowing more ideas of how to get to that place that we call joy. So the person that I'm going to introduce today is a fellow student. And for those of you who know Laura Topper, who has several shows on this network as well, she's also a classmate of Laura's. And Vicky Jeter is a practitioner that has been a licensed practitioner for 32 years, which absolutely blows me away. She's a senior practitioner in service at the Louisville Center for Spiritual Living in Kentucky. And she was very much the pinnacle of how that even began. And we're going to talk about that because it is so empowering to know that as a practitioner, you have the power to spread this word in amazing ways. And we are all practitioners. Anyone that prays in this way and knows the truth. She's also a senior in the ministerial school. This is her final year, soon to be minister. And I know she already is. But she is at the Holmes Institute, and she is a prenatal and perinatal educator, which I had never heard of until we met and spoke about it. It's all about infant consciousness in the journey from spirit coming into being a human being throughout the conception, gestation, and birth. Her passion is sharing, teaching, and modeling how spiritual principles apply in every relationship and experience in life to build our dreams from the very beginning. So it is a gift and a blessing to share with you Vicky Jeter this afternoon, wherever you are. That's the beauty of this show. We're everywhere. It's all over the world. So wherever you are, what a gift it is to be here with you, Vicky.
Thank you, Gina. I'm delighted. It's so exciting. I'm so grateful to New Thought Media Network. It has been a blessing to me, and it's a blessing to have this opportunity to give back.
You were actually on Laura's show as well, not too long ago, correct?
Yes, I was. And it tickles a person to realize, Laura, as anyone who's seen her show will know, she's in the UK. And what a way to demonstrate that spirit is non-local. When we're on with Laura, then it's just like you and I. You and I could, you're in my room, I'm in your room, and the same is true in Europe.
Is
So
only
it's just
one
a
all over
beautiful,
the world.
only one.
Only one. And with the gift that is the internet, which comes with its quirks at times, we know, but with the gift that is the internet, we have a global world that we have access to all of the time. And with the gifts of, we also have the opportunity that people can go back and watch your show with Laura as well. So
Hmm.
that was, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So I want to start by, you know, talking a little bit about what brings you joy. I usually start there because it is the joys of the journey. So, what do you do for fun? What brings you joy?
I get tremendous joy out of writing. I get tremendous joy out of sharing with people like this. These kinds of things just tickle me. Um, and probably it's moving out of me as I have the opportunity in this moment, realizing one of the most joyous things to me that covers all of the different things I'd like to do is synchronicity. I love synchronicity. Synchronicity tickles me like a child at Christmas when we
I love
have
that
things
statement.
that line up, where uh, you don't even realize how one thing is so beautifully going to connect to the next. And I'm learning as I work with synchronicities that when we engage them, they get more and bigger, and that really brings me joy. Um, and that can figure into just about every area of my life. In simplicity, I love to cook. I actually love sleeping. I find sleeping to be a very joyous affair. Um, and dreaming. One of the reasons I love sleeping is because it's this whole different world, and I love to like keep a dream journal. And actually, that's one of the places where two of my joys come together so much. I find that when I practice remembering my dreams and journal them and so forth, very, very often synchronistic things will connect back to where then my waking life and my dreamtime life then become interwoven. I see how they're connected by tracking synchronicities. And so it's just very joyous because I find it a way that it brings people together as well because dreaming and sleeping and synchronicity, all of those things are things we all experience. And so if you share an experience at that level, it doesn't take a whole lot to connect once you know someone's terminology, etc., where you can be speaking at this on the same page as far as what you mean. And so that those are among my very favorite things.
I appreciate that. And one of the things you had said that I just wanted to note, well, aside from the tickles me like a child at Christmas. I love that. That's a wonderful statement I've never heard, but I love that visual. And I just, one of the things you said that is important is that you track them, you write them down, because there's
Mhm.
so many times, a lot of us, I often do not remember my dreams, but when we wake up right away, usually there's something there. There's a there, whether it's getting up to go to the bathroom or whether it's getting up for the day, it's there in that instant. And if we get in the habit of writing it down, what we pay attention to grows. So with the
Mhm.
intention of remembering, it shows up. And when you write them down, thoughts attract. So they do, of course, show up through your day. I call
Mhm.
them God winks. Synchronicities are what I call God winks. And I too absolutely love them. I had written a paper this week, and twice in the paper, I mentioned yin and yang. And I have all kinds of card decks, and I love the different cards, the divinity cards and stuff. I do. I love the pictures. I love the intentions. I love it all. I just love it. And I asked, okay, I always ask spirit which one, and I'm guided to which one to use. Well, that evening after I sent off the paper, and I had happened to use and I don't often use that term yin and yang. The one card out of the one deck picked was
Was
yang,
the
and being in the
yeah.
flow. which was exactly what I was writing about in the paper. So you talk about those God winks that tell you you're exactly where you're meant to be at the exactly right time and space. Even us having this conversation today all fell in place, right in the right timing and the right opportunity, and it all just fell into place. Spirit is amazing.
Which we both knew along the way. Yeah. Yeah. We both saw that coming along the way. So it's a
Yep.
beautiful thing.
It is. And I wanted to also mention, because, I truly appreciate, the Louisville Center started as a study group. And I've asked you this, and I've spoken with you about this, several times. I am someone that, well, if I'm doing it, if someone else can, let them do it and I'll go do something else. That's how I've always, as a manager, I have a degree in restaurant management, but I've done all kinds of different management. If someone else can do it, great. I'll train you, you do it, and I'll go do the next thing. And I don't mean something necessarily bigger or better, but if someone else can, okay, you do that, I'll go to the next thing. And, I feel like when it comes to spreading the word of new thought, of course, we're in CSL, so it's specifically, religious science. The world needs this. And you did that. You stepped up and you started a study group in 2007, which eventually got chartered in 2009, and is now, 12 years later, it is the Louisville Center that is flourishing. So tell me about that experience. What was that like? How did it feel then? And how does it feel now?
Well, so that's a tremendous story of synchronicity. So just trusting the process. I will tell you this story and you let me know if we need to switch gears, okay? It's a fantastic story of demonstration. So I lived in Houston, Texas, and I worked for Continental Airlines before they became United. And as it happened, I thought that I would maintain being a full-time practitioner and continue to work for the airline full-time. I was tracking toward doing more practitioner, but I loved my job. So I thought I'll keep my airline job part-time and I'll be a practitioner full-time. And then when 9/11 happened, so much changed in the airline industry. And after a few years after that, I began to realize, you know what? My path is changing. And I knew that I wanted to then be a full-time practitioner. And the thing is, I had been established in the airline industry at that point for almost 20 years. And so on a human level, you're like, yeah, well, so you have this 20-year established thing, and you're really going to jump in and go be a full-time practitioner, right? And so I could imagine sitting down with my husband and saying, honey, what would you think if I just let go of that income and just dive in and be a full-time practitioner? Well, so I knew this was going to take some prayer. So I started praying. And because I really knew I was going to have to shift, and I knew if it's going to have to shift anyway, it was going to be into being a full-time practitioner. So one of the things I did, first of all, I prayed and meditated regularly. And we know that when we do affirmative prayer, if you have the conviction that it's already done, it doesn't need to be done again. But I knew this is like, life transformation. So I had no problem with the idea that I needed to be praying regularly. And I did. I prayed every day for the entire 2 years. It took me 2 years to do. But so the way that it unfolded, because I had no idea how Spirit was going to make this happen. One of the things that I did is airline industry, they have regularly early out opportunities. And so each year, some people would take early out, early retirement. And so as soon as I knew I was going to need to shift somehow, every time I'd get a card that was wishing somebody well on their way out, I would say, hold the door open for me. And I'd be affirming to Spirit for them and me too, right? And so that was one process that I had. And ultimately, what happened, next thing I did, I said, in order for me to do this, I need to know what it's going to feel like to be a full-time practitioner. So I lined up like 3 days in a row where I did only practitioner work, 8 hours a day. Which is extraordinary. That's like, 5 or 6 appointments a day for 3 days in a row. Not my normal rhythm at that point. But I knew that if I did it, then I'd have a feeling what it's like. So I did,
And can
and
I
on.
and go right ahead. I don't want to interrupt you, but go ahead. If you can, go ahead. Go right ahead. I'll ask after.
Well, let me get to this one point, and then we'll pause. Okay. So I did that 3 days because this is profound, and this because it leads up to how this became Louisville Center for Spiritual Living. On that third day, I was like charged. It was the end of the day. I was at my last appointment. I'm driving home, and I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And I literally heard, which I don't often, but I literally heard the voice of spirit within me say, will you trust me no matter what it looks like? And I was so charged, I just said yes. And so then we move on to the next phase. What were you going to ask me?
No, go ahead. I want you to. You can finish the. It's okay. Go right ahead. So, just
Okay.
I wanted to know, yeah, how did it unfold? Like, just give me the.
Yeah, no,
How
it's
it,
coming.
I want to make sure we go into the other part. So, I want to make sure we get into your. You have a
I
book.
got
You
you.
have the prenatal. Just tell me, how did it unfold?
I got you. The thing is, so I literally heard that from the voice of God. Well, like 4 or 5 months later, my husband's job in Houston literally got taken out and torn down. Unexpected. Six Flags in Houston, Texas. They sold the land from out from underneath the park. And so that changed everything. And that's why I heard the voice in spirit, will you trust me no matter what it looks like? Because if someone had said to me that it's going to take him losing what he had there, I would not have said that's okay. And so here we go. So all of a sudden, we find out my husband doesn't have a job. His boss had already been transferred to Kentucky, and his boss called him a few months after and said, I got your job up here, but you have to come in 5 days. 5 days. We didn't know nothing about Kentucky. I'm still working for the airline. I had to sell my house. And so all of a sudden, my husband tells me this is happening. I go to they told me in advance there's going to be an early out, which they don't normally tell you in advance. But I asked him, I said, this is happening. And I was like, oh my God. I said to my husband, Vernon, in 5 days, our whole life has changed. We're going to Kentucky. Here we come into Kentucky. I get here at the end of 2006. I put one little ad in the Science of Mind magazine. At that time, they had the listing. And that's the only ad I ever did. And one person at a time, people would call and they say, oh, and I say to every single one of them, and this is, I'm telling practitioners, if you know what your passion for service is, if you ask people, how may I be of service? Spirit will guide you. What will meet the case? So here we go. I start the study group on that basis. I'm asking every single individual, how may I serve you? Individually, collectively, and right away, people started saying, when is there going to be a center here? So I knew, okay, then, if that's what people want, then this is what this is going to be. And I needed to start looking for a minister. At that time, I was not ready to step into going to ministerial school. I was a practitioner. And so I started, and now all that unfolds. And sure enough, within 2 years, we were ready to charter. We had our minister. We had a congregation of 50. You have to charter, you have to have 50 members. And there, so it was about trusting. It was about willing to stay in the treatment zone for as long as it took in this case, I know sometimes you treat and you've got that conviction, you don't need to keep treating. I knew though, in order for me to develop space within myself to be able to embrace something this big, like going full time, I had no idea it would be full time in Kentucky. But there you go. So this is the deal. And that's the answer to that question.
I I always say spirit has a sense of humor. I really, because like you said, yes, I'll follow you, but you don't know what that's going to look like. You know,
You don't
I
know.
I went into ministerial school saying, absolutely, I am not going to have a center. I was certain I would never be on the pulpit, just being that wasn't going to be my ministry. Yet here I am, and I know it's exactly where I'm supposed to be. I also never planned to go back to Boston because it's where I grew up, and I never planned to. I love Rhode Island. I enjoy being here, and here I am. So life is, while I live in Rhode Island, my center is in Boston, and eventually, I am open to whatever. I've learned that you can't say never to anything. If you're following spirit, and I believe it's the only way for our highest and best, amazing things, twists, turns, but it's knowing that you're exactly where we're meant to be. And,
Yes, indeed.
I had asked you when I was thinking, and you kind of answered it along the way. It's amazing that, there's a lot of, understanding that it is a professional to be a practitioner, a licensed practitioner. It is a profession. And the fact that you
Yes.
had that number of clients is your consciousness too, because there's a lot of that. So how do you grow, or how have you grown the clients that know of you? How do you think that works, that you have been able to make this as a profession, or spirit through you?
Yes. So thank you for asking. That is probably one of the most important questions that can be posed to professional practitioners. Being a licensed practitioner is a profession just as much as being a licensed any other kind of service person. And for practitioners to realize the profound value that we bring to our clients, um, that's the foundational thing. When I got my license, I maybe because this larger thing was going to be developing through me, I don't know what, but from the very day I ever had my license, I knew to carry myself as a professional. And I felt shy, just like all practitioners. Well, I shouldn't say all, almost all practitioners originally do. You know, it's like, I'm supposed to tell people I have this skill and it's about prayer and you can't hang it on a wall and you can't hold it in your hands. So what are people paying for? People are paying for your trained mind. They're paying for what you know operates on a spiritual level through the law. That it's not that it doesn't operate through them, but they don't know it. In the same kind of way, if everybody knew how to change the oil in a car, they would do it. People that know how to do it. But people that don't know how to do it need to pay to have it done. So we're not saying that we have anything that anyone else doesn't have, but by practicing every day, by doing our spiritual practices every day, not only for ourselves, but because we are a professional, that is a skill. And when you have that skill honed, the response that the universe has to you for that is like a hand in a glove. It's more seamless than it can happen for others. Not saying
And
that, oh, go ahead.
no, I'm just saying that's a wonderful way to explain it, because it's remembering that it's not paying for prayer. It's not, prayer is free. That's by all means. What it is, it is that skill. It is that education and the time, and it, just like anything, it's being in that place of your this is your profession. This is your skill. Just like we pay for an oil change, just like we pay a doctor, just like we pay, for whatever it is that we're taking time of, we're using it's the same way. So I think it's important to note that. And because some people don't understand that you can go to a practitioner, and the gift of a session of a practitioner, or what I'm going to, in my eyes too, is the gift that I've received is, when we're in it, we don't see it. sometimes it's like from the outside, it's easy to see in, but on the
Objective.
inside,
Yes.
and a practitioner sees your perfection and knows your truth as opposed to the story. The story can
Right.
help unravel it for you so that, you pluck out the weeds, but we don't need to know the story. We can simply know your truth. So it's an amazing gift, and it is definitely something that is very important.
Yes. So just because the whole subject is so important, can I just add one little thing to
Of
that?
course.
So if you're a professional practitioner and you're listening to this, and this is appealing to you, one of the things that you can do if you have that feeling, which personally, this is a feeling I still have, is that because we are talking prayer and because everyone deserves to know where they're starting from, you can develop at least one way, one method or something where people can access you without charge. And then you can say to people that want more consistent support, maybe they're going to do a whole life transformation, or you can have a schedule of fees for an individual session where they know in advance that it's a profession and this is how you make your living. And yeah, there's going to be a fee. So you can work both ends of that and really make it comfortable and make it work. So just as one quick idea, first of all, people can access practitioners on Sundays. Um,
Yes.
and then there's
If you have a
the
center. If you have a
yes,
center, you can access. And I don't want to really spend, because there's a lot of people that watch that aren't. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say, I'm going to have them reach out to you, and that you can speak with them, because I want to
there you go.
actually give them
That's
an
a good idea.
opportunity to have that conversation with you. Your email is right here. It's vickybjeter@gmail.com. So they can
Thank
reach
you,
out with
Gina.
you if they want more information on that, because we have a few other things I want to make sure we have time for. But I
Yes.
want the point that I want to make through this, especially, is to honor what it is that you know, whether you're a practitioner, whether you're a life coach or any other kind of coach, whether you're a doctor, a nurse, whether you're whatever it is that you do, e- even, and I say even and not minimizing, as a parent, honor what you do, what you know, what your gifts are. Honor all of it, because when we honor ourselves, the universe honors us. If you read today, you read anything, you're going to see you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So if our belief is there's no cash value, then we're going to get no cash value. But if you believe and you know that what I'm doing is changing lives, and it's a gift, and it's a healing, then it does have value. And how much I
Yes.
value it is what I receive in every aspect of life. So that's
Yes.
the point that I wanted to make on that.
Thank you, Gina. And thank you for keeping us on track, because
Well, because I really
absolutely
want to
all
talk
these things
about,
are passions.
I really want to talk about, but I also want to, one of my, I won't say pet peeves, but one of my points of frustration sometimes is when you have a center that has a dozen practitioners and there's no book studies, or there's nothing outside of the center. There doesn't need to be 15, 20, or in some cases, 100 practitioners in one place and not spreading the word. We are here to teach. That's why we become, yes, we're healers, but we're here to teach. And if you're in the place that there's already so many, branch out and find some place that doesn't. Go a little further out of the, because there's someone that needs you. You have something to offer. So that's why I really, because you did that. And as a result, there's, a couple hundred people that have been, at least, and all the people that they know, and all the people that they know, and all the future people are of this successful, vibrant center. And that's why I say
Mm-hmm.
it, because I give you kudos for actually trusting what came. And on that, I ask you, now tell me, how is it that you
Mm-hmm.
discovered this field? What is the field? If you can kind of just let us know that, because I know
Oh,
your
sure.
initial PPNE, what does that stand for? And how did you find it?
Okay. So PPN is prenatal and natal. That's the PPN. Because both prenatal and perinatal have the natal, they call it PPN. So it's pre and perinatal, and then the educator. So I'm a pre and perinatal educator. Okay, and that is addressing the field of pre and perinatal psychology. Okay, so there are different types of birth educators. There's midwives and there's doulas, and people are somewhat familiar with that, where you learn about birth training and all that. A pre and perinatal educator is a little bit different. We can be present to those kinds of trainings, but pre and perinatal education is actually about orienting to what we know as the reality that the being of a baby, the awareness of a baby, is present at every level of the creation process. From the moment of conception, there is awareness. So spiritually, we come from the standpoint that we are a continuous life, and so we come from somewhere before we get here, right? And then
So that soul always existed. It's that spark of divine that
yes, it's the
is the
spark of the
moment of
divine.
conception. That spark of divine is there.
Yes, yes, and so for people that have the concern, well, how can that be if there's not a brain, right? But what's true is where there is life, the movement of life, there is consciousness. And as a new life blossoms through the dividing of those cells and gets larger and larger, the more the structure is of what is containing the movement of life, the more potential there is for the experiences that that life is having to be held. So most people by now have heard the term like cellular memory or body memory. Okay, so that's a true story. Okay, so even before conception, the cell that is the egg and the cell that is the sperm, they're very vital living cells, and they have the vitality and the intelligence that comes with them in nature. They have a level of consciousness in that way. Okay, and so you have a spiritual being that's in this process of coming into a whole new vehicle through these two living cells. So when those two living cells come together, then that's just all magnified. Then you've got all that
Okay.
consciousness. So
Okay.
it's not,
Now we, because we don't have a lot of time, so I want to get into. So now we know that this is what it covers. Now, why is it important?
it's important. I'll come from my perspective as simply and briefly as possible.
Only because
When
I want to
I
make sure we talk about. I want to talk about your book and what's coming up and all that goes with it. So there's a lot of stuff to cover, and time just flies.
there is a
But
lot
I
of
don't mean to.
stuff to
I don't
cover.
mean to cut you off, Vicky, in any way. And we'll definitely do this
Oh, that's all
again.
right. No, I mean it's like an endless fabric, so it's okay. What we get covered is going to be perfect. So
Absolutely.
what's true, okay, is when I had the actual experience of realizing that the idea that we are as fully present at the moment of conception as we are right now, it's just a matter of what we're doing with it and what we have room for carrying, in our overt consciousness. I mean, it was so incredibly freeing. It was an absolute confirmation to me that we are timeless beings. Literally, we are somewhere before we get here. We go through this phenomenal process that comes into this vehicle. And when I realized, oh my gosh, we are timeless. I am timeless. And so, in one kind of way, so much pressure to say, of course, we live in the moment, and I love the joy in the journey. When you introduced me, you said, you know, you're living in this moment. This is the moment of your life. Well, so that's a very good point to make. What you're saying, what's the point of all this? When we realize that not only is the joy in the journey getting here for our babies, but that in fact, the being that is coming in there is as fully present as we are here. It's like, how much more joyous are we going to welcome them in? How much more are we going to say, let me begin connecting now? Because that little being is there, and the sooner that recognition is made, the more joy there is for this being coming in that says, oh, there's an awareness here, and this is fascinating, but people are waiting for me, and all of those kinds of things. And so the importance of it to me is that there is such a profound integration of what it actually means to be a spiritual being having a human experience than I ever recognized when I was in my first workshop. And I really got the feeling of this. I came out of it, Gina, and every single person with whom I made eye contact, I was making eye contact with them from the beginning, like from the very moment they left, in essence, the heart of God before we were embodied. Everybody has
It
that.
changed your idea. It changed your
Yes,
not just your belief, but your knowing of what what the truth is. So it's an
yes,
understanding. When we say things like, we often will say things like, well, I often say, show up as love today. And when I look at someone, know that that I'm seeing divine, regardless of what they've
right,
done and what my physical emotion about them may be. They are a child. They are divine in motion. They're an individualized expression.
yes,
So it's being love to love, and
yes,
regardless of what they're being, because sometimes they don't show up and look like my experience of
in
love,
their
but
behavior. Sometimes
I
behavior does
can
not.
know them as love in a different way because
Yes.
your knowing of them changed.
Yes, yes, because when I could feel the reality of myself as that tiny, tiny prenate or being still in gestation, it was much easy for me to recognize, in this moment, if I take that breath and I look into your eyes, I know Gina was before Gina now. Gina was all Gina in the womb. And I'm saying, oh, sweet baby, just let me just give you a nice little
It
infant
allows
hug.
you to honor people differently.
Yes, yes, and it doesn't excuse the mistakes we make in behavior, but it makes it so much easier to distinguish that the being is not the behavior. The behavior is adaptive, and we
and
all have those
and that
adaptive
is
things that we do.
I just want to pause you there, that the being is not the behavior. And the reason that
Yes,
that is so important, especially in today's society, when you think of addictions, when you think about what you see and there's againstness, that the being of who someone really is and what we really are is not the expression of what they're doing in a moment. It's not it's not the addict. It's not the quote unquote mistake, because nothing really is. It's not an action. It's simply what they're doing in the moment. And we always have that opportunity to choose again. And that's the gift of spirit. And another part that I wanted to bring up about this, because I've done workshops, you've done workshops, and you've done all kinds of, I've been blessed to do a meditation. And one of the meditations that you brought me through along the lines of this was one of the most powerful experiences that I ever had. You brought me back to a place and an understanding, and there's healing in that, because at every area of our life, as a child, we don't think about it, but regardless of whether or not we remember it, we know that everything we've ever done, known, said, heard is all in our memory bank. It's not on our
right.
conscious
It's in
memory
there
because that's
somewhere.
way too big, but it is somewhere in our subconscious at some cellular level. Everything that
They
ever was to do with us is in this computer called called Gina,
Your
called Vicky.
physiological being. Yes.
Exactly. So in this computer that we have, that we're given, this amazing, it's there on a cellular level. And when we have trauma, And we don't even have to know it's trauma, because that's an awareness that I also had, is that I had a lifetime of traumas that I didn't call trauma, therefore it couldn't be that bad. I was told
Right,
about my happy childhood, so therefore it must be so. So there's
right.
so many layers that are true, but we ignored or were told differently. And by not honoring them, we hold that pain in place. So by
Hmm.
doing these practices, it allows us to tap into that unconscious, subconscious, cellular level and heal.
Yes. And for those who are wondering at this point, that was all beautifully said. And I just want to support people in knowing, um, as timeless beings, there are parts of us that when we tap into them, it can feel like we're right back there at that time. And so when thinking about this and thinking about starting to congeal some of your own story, maybe to have support for it is a very, very important thing, because um, to tap in to such a vulnerable state as being an infant, even an infant after birth. Human infants are some of the most vulnerable on the planet until we get to where we can crawl and all those kinds of things. And so um, when you're considering tapping into those places of vulnerability, having a support system of safety in place is a very good idea. But that can be developed, especially
And
through prayer and.
yes, and
Go
as far as that system, it can be through your center, through your minister. It can be with a practitioner, and it can be with a therapist. It can be with there's a layer of people that you can have there, but there's gifts on so many levels. And I want to just
Mhm.
mention, one of the most, to me, one of the most tragic circumstances we have, not just women, but especially women, self-esteem. Because I know it's
Mhm.
anybody, it's not just, but especially a lot of women are carrying traditional guilt. They're carrying, and I mean generational traditional, in the sense of, well, my grandmother took care of the house and she mopped the floor and she cleaned from top to bottom. Dinner was on the table every day. The kids were taken care of. She took them to and fro. They had the house, they had the this. But my grandmother, that was her job. And
Mhm.
as we go on in life and time changes, there's a part of that structure. There's a lot of us that still believe we're supposed to do all of those things and run our business, and have a job and do
Right.
everything else. And we're holding guilt for what we think we're supposed to do when our roles have changed and there is no supposed to. So self care, and same with dads, life looks very different than it used to.
For him than
They're
it
trying
used
to
to.
get people to and from school. They're doing, whether they're the little league, they're trying to get them to their football, games. They're trying to get them to dancing class, whatever it may be. There's a million distractions in a bunch of different areas, and it no longer is one income that takes us where we used to be able to
Right.
live. So now people are working 2 and 3 jobs. There's the distraction of not just the internet, but so many different things. And life is different. And we are comparing what happened yesterday, as in yesteryear, to life today and feel less than. So it is so important in this that we bring it back to truth. And when you think about where I'm going with this, and I know it's random, but where I'm going with this is that ability of self love.
Mhm.
What I use often as an example is when people have a hard time with that, because I've, as a life coach, for over a decade and probably all of my life, I have, there's a lot of people that have a hard time with self love, and I don't go into what I'm gonna, and I basically say, think of a child that you absolutely love, because we all have children in our lives that are vulnerable and beautiful and absolutely perfect. And when you hold them and you love them and you look at them, you think and you know that you would do anything to allow this infinite possibility to unfold as them. that they could be, whether it's going to be a doctor or a lawyer or a practitioner, whether they're going to be anything that they want to, and that I will do everything in my power to make that so. They have infinite potential, and I know it, I see it, and I'm so excited and filled with love for them. And I say, okay, now feel that and know that someone felt it for you. Someone held you
Yes.
and loved you in the same way. And you now have the opportunity to love you in this same way.
That way.
You are
Yes.
filled with all of that potential, all of that love, all of that empowerment that you offered that child is now you too.
Right.
And that's part of what I see what you do as, to allow ourselves to love ourselves and know ourselves at a deeper level.
Yes. And as we tap into ourselves at the more vulnerable childlike levels, infant level, the realization is that yes, because we're timeless, those signatures are still there. And absolutely to practice regarding ourselves as if we had those pieces of ourselves the way we would look at ourselves if we were a child. If you had that was you sitting right there next to you as those beautiful children you were just describing, that when you see the kids and you know who they are, yes, to regard yourself that way. And so when you're saying what is the value of being aware of this, that is the huge integrated value of realizing, in our society, as we age, it's like, um, I grew up and left my childish kinds of ways behind. It's like, no, 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 no. All of those potentials that we once were are still our potentials today. And when we can, it's not that you run around acting like a 7-year-old or acting like an infant, although we do, before we've healed, we can get triggered
I
into
do.
there.
I still do. I'm a big
Well,
kid.
that's true. What I'm trying to say is sometimes people would get triggered into the unconscious and they're not aware that they're acting from one of their children. And there are people that are not able to drive confidently because they're like driving from an 8-year-old. Okay, they get triggered. Um, but what I'm trying to say is, as we heal and as we give ourselves that self-regard and as we allow the younger parts of ourselves to have joy and come forward, they begin to see through our adult eyes. And so when you can see, when you get that kind of joy, Gina, you can see your younger self. But it's not that you've left her. It's not just her. Okay, your adult is there with her, with the part of you that's
I
vulnerable.
honor her. When I
Yes, you
allow
honor
that
her.
voice, when I allow that play, I'm honoring that child that is.
That
I tell
right.
people all the time, you get the opportunity to create the childhood you want now. It's not too late.
Exactly.
Still be
This is
there.
what we're saying. It's an integration. It's an integration when you're able to bring that childlike joy through all your wisdom and and then you're experiencing the world from that childlike joy, but you're doing it from the safety and security of a wise adult. That's what
And
we're
you're
talking.
supported by the person that's carrying you through the workshop, the exercise, and then whoever else you
Yes.
have. And we begin to create a greater web of caregivers for us, nurturers for us. And it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a parent figure. It doesn't have to be even a counselor. It can be a friend where I am showing up as me and honoring how I really feel. Because before this, I didn't know.
Yes. And for people who are clicking to this, if this is resonating with you, for even seeing something like this, if there's a part of you that has been trying to get your attention, it may emerge. Write it down, because beginning to pull the pieces of the story together, the more we have the story and the more coherent it is, the stronger it is. And the story can change because it's not about facts as it is what was your experience of it. People can
Exactly.
have told you pieces of your story, and that can be helpful, but sometimes it can be from their perspective. And what their perspective of your story was and how you experienced it can be two different things. So trust yourself in
Yep.
what emerges and keep being willing to tell pieces of the story many times. Okay? It's your story, so it deserves to be embellished as many times as it would prefer. And then sometimes it does grow and change and morph. But
It's
it's like our
all
personal, yeah.
it's all about honoring ourselves at any point,
Yes.
in every point. It's not denying any truths. It's not about letting go of any concept of fear and allowing spirit within us to carry us, and to contact, like, to be that light and lifter as well, because it's not we're never alone, we're showing up as spirit, so allowing spirit also to guide us to whatever it
Oh,
is that we
always.
need to know. and
Yes.
and
Because
as
in all those points, spirit's been present.
Oh, and it's spirit as us. So
Yes.
it's amazing, and we literally could speak on this all day, and we're running out of time, which is hard to believe. So I want to just let people know that you have a book on Amazon that is wonderful. So this is your book, and I want people to not only write it down, that call me Victoria, but also make sure they write down your name as well. Okay, because you actually are, because there's maybe, just make sure that they find you. Tell us
Yeah,
about your
there's
book.
more than one. Yeah, there's more than one Call Me Victoria on Amazon. So if you put Call Me Victoria by Vicky Jeter, that book is autobiographical, but it's autobiographical in poems, stories, and articles. So short snatches where you could just open up the book and read just a piece at a time. And it walks through how I moved. I was born with spastic cerebral palsy from my birth, and that's how I got to researching pre and perinatal psychology in my own healing journey. So the book goes from where I started from, being born with cerebral palsy, into learning about how to go back and do some healing for my inner infant that went through all that. And so that's why the title is actually Call Me Victoria, Poems and Stories from Trial to Triumph, because
And
it, yeah.
go right ahead. I don't want to
Oh,
cut
no,
you
you're
off.
fine.
I
Go
wanted to
ahead.
just say, on that note, you have one particular poem that is perfect for today that I
Yeah.
would love for you to share. I had asked you, it's Come On Out. It's actually for the inner child. And I would love for you to
Yes.
share it with us today. Is that okay?
Oh, thank you so much. I was hoping I might get an opportunity to read, and then I had to choose a poem. I think this is going to be perfect for what we've been talking about. And then I'll just turn it back over to you because this might be the perfect thing as the last piece that I offer.
Okay, well, before that, is there anything else that you wanted people to know or share about? We will have you back on. That's not even a question, but it's just, is there any other before we close with your poem? Is there anything else? And I'll put your information that if people would like to just reach out to you, that they're welcome to do that. Is there anything else
Um,
that you want to
Thank
share?
you for asking. There is so much that could be said. Um, I think I'd like to say is I believe opportunities like this, and as you and I said, this was very synchronistic. This happened today. So for people that are listening, I just want to encourage you, trust yourselves and trust your relationship to spirit. Take what you've heard here, take it into your own inner sanctuary, whatever that means for you, prayer, meditation, both, whatever it might mean, and trust the process. It's an organic, unfolding kind of process, and it does apply to every being on the planet. So bless you along your ways. And I think with that, I don't have anything else that I would need to say right now.
Well, here is your poem. Come on out.
And actually, when I read this poem, sometimes there's a little tune I have to it, so I might end up singing
Oh,
it a
I'll
little
just
bit.
just read it. That's okay, because the music may not work with the studio, so I don't
Oh,
want to
no,
knock
no, no.
you out.
I wasn't going to play music. No, I hear you. Just know if you hear a little melody with it, that's just a natural way that this poem flows.
Okay.
Come on out, spin around, come and play with me. There's so much to see. After our lifelong game of hide and seek, I am remembering me. Come on out, it's all right. Come and talk with me. Tell me of all that you feared. I will hold you and love you and let you know I have room for every tear. Come on out, take my hand, come and walk with me. Let's see what we can find. I want to feel all the moments that you have held in dreams and feelings I left behind. Come on out, spin around, come and play with me. For now, our hard work is done. So together we'll adventure all through then and now, rediscovering how to have fun.
And so it is. And thank you. Thank you so much. What a gift. What a gift you are. And I thank you for being here. You have, you're just, I look forward to having you back. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us. The joy is in the journey. Remember, you can reach out to me, Gina, at cslboston.org. And I would love to hear from you, whether it's about topics, whether it's about the show, any questions, anything at all. I'd love to hear from you. You can also reach me at Gina at Believe in You Today. Remember that we are here on New Thought Media Network because of people just like you. So we are here because we get this opportunity of this center. And please remember that without you, we're not around. So go to ntmedia.org and donate. Know that, just click on that button, whether it says a monthly donor or as a one time. But we are here because of people just like you. If you've been blessed, if you've heard something that's touched you, circulate that good. Circulate that good and let people know as well. Forward it to someone. Send the message to them as well. Remember that this network is a gift, and all of these things are here. We are here because of people just like you. New Thought Media is here and praying for you and with you. And we have prayer time, 8:15 a.m. and p.m. on Mountain Time, 10:15 a.m. and p.m. at the East Coast where I am. And, there's just so much good on this network. So I thank you. I thank you for being here today and celebrating joy now in that expansion of life itself and knowing that it's only getting better. Just know that the best is yet to come. So I celebrate you and I am grateful. Blessings. Thank you, Vicky, for being here. And thank you for supporting the network and each other, because we are all just walking each other home. Blessings and love. Namaste.